It's time for Solutions for Seniors to Be, here on WATD. Here to help make your golden years golden, offering guidance on programs and services available to you and your loved ones in your retirement. Now, here's your host, Chris Shea.
I've been in the right place.
Good Sunday morning. Hopefully this is the right place and the right time for you to get some more information about how to enjoy those years that you have left in your life in the best way possible. And a lot of the times, I know for me, there's always a question of how it kind of comes to the end. I know for my grandmother, I was living in New Orleans and she lived up here in Boston, and she had dementia, and about a month before she passed away, I was home visiting, and we had a conversation in one of the months that one of my visits with her when she was lucid, and she talked about how she missed her husband. They had been married for 52 years before he passed away, 8 years earlier. And I kind of said, Graham, it's going to be okay. I want to remember you as the woman who made me chocolate chip cookies and silver dollar pancakes, not as the woman who swore at me every other time I came to visit you because you thought I was an orderly who wasn't getting your medicine right at the facility that she was being taken care of. And she looked at me and said, really? And I said, yeah, we're going to be okay. And literally a month later, she passed away. It was like she was asking for permission to go because she was the matriarch. She was the one that took care of everything. With my mother, it was a slightly different set of circumstances. She, in the pandemic, just kind of gave up a little bit, but there was an end-of-life process there, and it was particularly hard for me because I'm a guy, and most of the time us guys aren't as good with our emotions and communicating them and things like that. And I recently came across a woman, her name's Cheryl, and Cheryl Botieri, and she gave a presentation recently at a event that I was at in Plymouth, and the entire room got stunned and silent, and then realized that, wow, she actually got an empowering message. So I wanted to share that message with a lot more people. So, Cheryl, welcome to Sunday morning on WATD.
Oh my gosh, Chris, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I could introduce you, but I don't do as good a job introducing people as they do introducing themselves. So why don't you tell the people who you are and what you do exactly, because I gave them a not very specific intro. Hopefully it leaves them with bated breath to learn more about what you do, but take it over and introduce yourself.
Well, formally, I call myself an end-of-life educator and family support specialist. And so what my goal is to help people to really realize that they're going to die.
That's a big one.
I share in many of my presentations and meeting people that I have a 100% guarantee that every single person that you know, every single person that they know is going to die.
And that's what silenced the room that I was in the group with.
And people chuckle or just, oh my goodness. And then they start to think about it. And that's my goal, is to use the word death, dying, so that people do think about that now. And so my goal is to provide opportunities to have conversation. So as a communications person, as a family education and support person, I'm an educator, not a medical person, not a social worker. I am really trying to get people to think about some things so that they are prepared, so that they learn all the choices that they may have, so that they can live well, age well, and die well.
And as it is coming up on Thanksgiving very soon, this might be a time to have one of those uncomfortable conversations that realistically need to have happen for some people because of where people are in their lives.
I think Thanksgiving is one of the best times. We think about what are you thankful for, what are you grateful for, hopefully. And so the dinner tables of conversation are really rich with conversation and can be even more helpful for folks to start some of these conversations. So I have a great resource for people. It's called Let's Talk About Death Over Dinner. It's a book. It's a movement. And several times I've had either a book discussion or a community dinner or have hosted one of these. And it's a great book. It's a great resource. And there's just prompts. And one of the first ways to start is to perhaps light a candle and at your dinner table and just honor someone that, just like your grandma or your mom, that meant something to you. And what was that relationship about? What were you grateful for with that relationship? And so it just kind of sets the tone for how might we want to be remembered? What might someone say about us? And so all ages. Right. From very young children all the way up to, as you mentioned, a matriarch in the family. Because we do somewhere know that we are going to die, but most of us don't talk about it, and we certainly don't plan. I know.
Oh, heck no. Nobody plans.
You're in the financial services, and that's one piece of it, right? So there's legal. So I always share, let's see if the ducks are in a row. Do we have the ducks? Do we have a healthcare proxy? Do we have perhaps a durable power of attorney? Do we have maybe a living will, which can supplement your healthcare proxy? In Massachusetts, it's not legally binding, but it gives a little bit more information as to what your choices might be, right? If this happens, I don't want that. My grandmother had a feeding tube, and I know if she could have shared her wishes, that wouldn't have been the case.
My mom actually put her in the hospital, and they told us, like, if we hadn't gotten her that day, she probably would have died within 24 hours. But they gave her fluid, they gave her a feeding tube, and 2 weeks later, they sent her off to a facility for rehab. Then 2 weeks after that, of literally fighting with her to try and participate, I was told, by the doctor there, he's like, you can send her back to the hospital. They'll put her back in a feeding tube, or we just proceed with hospice care. And fortunately, there was no, we had a healthcare proxy in place. It was my aunt, my mom's sister, but she lived out in Oregon, so she transferred it to me. And I knew that my mom didn't want the feeding tube and the back and forth and prolonging her life just to be alive, but not living. Right? There's no dignity in how she was going to be, quote unquote, air quotes, living at that point in time. And I talked with my aunt, talked to a couple other family members and friends, and they're like, yeah, she doesn't want to do this anymore, so let her go and remember her for the good things, and not as this person with a feeding tube down her throat.
And those are some of the things. There's when there's a serious illness, but I try and help people to think about these things way before, because a lot of times people are in crisis, and that's what I love about
bad choices get made.
Let's talk about death over dinner. It just kind of gives us the opportunity. And there, like I say, are prompts in the book. Or sometimes what I'll do when I'm doing one of these programs is print them out, and we just pick from a bowl. And we all get to just kind of talk it through. And
is that like credit card roulette at dinner?
Oh, it's just an opportunity to listen to others and then to do some self-reflection. Oh, I wouldn't want that. But someone across the table from you might say, oh, please, I would want that. If there was any chance, or here's how I would like my funeral to be or not to be. And so there's a lot of opportunity. So a lot of the educational programs that I do are because of my experiences with my grandma that had Alzheimer's and was on that feeding tube, and I got to be with her when she passed. And for me, earlier in my career, I was a childbirth educator, And so, bringing little ones into the world, having 4 children of my own and now 3 grandchildren, those babies are held. That's not necessarily the case when we die. And certainly during COVID, we saw how difficult that can be to not be with your loved ones.
Yep.
And so I think people are a little bit more open to discussing this because of COVID, because of so many people that died alone. And thankfully, some of our medical staff really would go in. And I remember this one nurse that raised dollars to get iPads so that loved ones could see one another, right? So that connection, we're human beings. We do want to connect. And so if we can think about these things a little bit before, the gift is that your loved ones don't have to guess.
That's the biggest thing, right? So I do presentations to the Alzheimer's Association on managing money. And yes, it's about money, but some of the big statistics that come out of it are 44% of caregivers for people with Alzheimer's or another cognitive challenge, they suffer from anxiety and depression because they don't know what to do because they haven't been given direction. And I tell people, it's a weird thing, but the person that's the aged one that's facing death in the near future,
or not, with Alzheimer's,
right, or
a long road.
The gift that they give their loved one is peace of mind and clarity, right? Like I tell people, I knew my mom didn't want to go back and forth on a feeding tube. That was not a hard choice. Factually, emotionally, it was you want to keep your loved ones alive as long as you can to enjoy them.
Here with us, at least physically.
Yeah, but I knew that wasn't the road that she would have asked for. She would have said, heck no, I don't want that mechanical stuff. She didn't even want to go to the doctors and get a physical, never mind a feeding tube. There was no question she did not want support from the medical staff and facilities on to keep her alive. So it wasn't a hard choice in that respect, but still emotionally, it was, it's just hard.
Well, and that's why we want to talk about these things, right? And so whether it's at a Council on Aging workshop that I'll do or at a networking meeting, I try to get people to think about those things and work with colleagues like yourself, because there are certain things legally, financially, medically. But that's where then I come in, is what matters most to you and how might we dig a little deeper, because some of these things are going to happen and some of them won't. But at least if we have plan A, B, C, D, right, we have choice. So if one of these things comes about, serious illness, an accident, which can happen at any age. I look at several dear family members or friends that had, cancer at 50 and passed away by 54, pancreatic cancer at 43, right? And surviving and thriving at 47. I mean, you go through many, many things. Yeah. And what that gives us is some knowledge and education. And if we can share these things and plan for these things, I guarantee that things will be better than if you did not plan.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break here and then get back, because I do want to mention something about the Council on Aging. I did a presentation there recently, so we'll get back to that. Are you fit to retire? I'm Chris Shea, financial advisor with BPS Financial Services in Marshfield. I work with clients to create a 100-day plan that can help get you started so that you can get the most out of your retirement. You've worked your whole life towards your goal of retirement. Let BPS Financial Services put together a plan that will help you enjoy your retirement. Find out how a 100-day plan tailored to you can help you get started in your retirement at fit2retire.com/Chris-Shea or call 781-733-5996. That's 781-733-5996. And now for my fast red disclosure, as this has been compliance approved.
Chris Shea is a registered representative offering securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Located at 752 Ocean Street, Marshfield, Massachusetts, 02050.
That's 781-733-5996. Welcome back from hearing about me and what I do with my Fit to Retire platform. But so we were talking before we went to that break there about how I did a presentation for the Alzheimer's Association at the Council on Aging in Norwell, and the director of the Council on Aging got up impromptu, unbeknownst to me, and talked about the conversation she had with her family about her end of life. And she wanted, again, we live Norwell, Marshfield, we live by the ocean. She wanted everything around her to be the ocean. Like, I want to be at the sea, but if I can't be at the ocean, paint my room blue. Have ocean waves in the background. Bring in some sand so that I can touch and feel it. Everything, bring in ocean smells so that I can smell being on the ocean. And the entire room of people that were caregivers for people with Alzheimer's or had Alzheimer's were like, oh my God, I wish I knew that my loved one wanted something like that or something completely different, but I wish I knew what their wishes were. And when you talked earlier about like the gift of clarity for the caregiver, these conversations help with that. They
help both the person that is facing death as well, or contemplating someday, right, as well as the person that's going to be left behind and responsible, right, because we choose one healthcare proxy, our agent, and an alternate that are going to have to make maybe a tough decision, right? Now, that healthcare proxy is only invoked if you cannot make those decisions for yourself because you're incapacitated somehow. Yep. A lot of people think that that's, they get to make the decision over you, and that's not the case.
And that was important, right? Because, again, I talk about my mom. She wasn't doing well. It was COVID. I couldn't get in there. I was really concerned. I actually called 911 on her to try and get her medical help because she refused. You should have seen her turn on, like all her capacities came into play when she realized that she was going to lose control. And the EMTs looked and were like, we can't do anything. She's competent, capable, and
that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
That's a good thing, and that's why educating folks. Okay, this is what this does, and this is what that does is really, really important, and that you can change that person at any time, and you can change those wishes.
Right.
But what's most important is to be thinking about some of the choices that you can think of now. So one of the workshops that we're doing, a series that actually started at the Norwell Senior Center, is Live Well, Age Well. And so it's an informational series that will say, okay, the gift of preparedness, and have a lawyer, a finance person, have someone from the hospital to say, what happens, there? What are the gaps? Should I stay or should I go? What are the
in terms of living in your house or facility?
Living in your home,
as we talk about death, people think, should I stay or should I go? Well, yeah, I'm going to go.
Well,
and die,
and that's
right?
Death with dignity is a whole nother topic, but also your care team. Right now it is so difficult for folks to get home care in their homes because we have such a shortage with staffing.
It's
caring
not
for
just at your restaurant.
It's not. And when you're looking at someone caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, it's very, very difficult to, depending on the stage, to be able to do that as the sole caregiver. And so one of the things we're doing in many of the communities across the Commonwealth is a program called Age and Dementia Friendly Massachusetts. And so in Plymouth, there's a task force, the senior task force, and we're working on this process to get Plymouth designation as an age and dementia-friendly community. And so we are meeting, and we're going through the first phase, which is all community feedback. So there was a survey, there were stakeholder interviews.
Oh, God, that
there
must
were
have been fun in Plymouth.
community forums, community focus groups. It's actually been awesome. It's actually been awesome. And so people are helping to see where are the gaps in services. Transportation, I am sure, is going to be one of them. We'll be getting the results in early December. But then we'll be building an action plan. And so one of the committees that I am very passionate about, because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, is this training around helping people, family members caring for a loved one with dementia, Alzheimer's, to be able to go out and about in the community and have sensitivity that sometimes there might be a little something of an embarrassment behavior, or, perhaps the person isn't understanding. And so one of the goals is to put together an action plan. How can we all as a community embrace being age friendly and dementia friendly?
And it's challenging too, because again, I'm aware because of the work I do with the Alzheimer's Association. When people enter into dementia, their core personality is what comes through. Whatever they've been, socialized into kind of disappears. There's this one story that it's absolutely horrifying but wonderful at the same time, about this woman. The father had Alzheimer's. They gave him a debit card with like $200 on it. And this family comes up, shysters, a man and a woman with a baby, and we're like, hey, we don't have money for taking care of our baby. Can you help us? And the guy his inner core was, I want to help people. So he got in the car with them. They took him to the ATM machine, told him to empty out his ATM. All he had access to was $200. He took out the $200, handed it to them, and they left him there. He then somehow managed to get home, right? So, but the point of that is that people that have Alzheimer's dementia can be taken advantage of very easily. You got to put impediments, things in place to protect them from themselves sometimes. But if this person's core function was to be a mean person, it would have been a completely different interaction with these people. Like the core personality tends to surface. And you've got to be aware of that when you go out in public. It's like, okay, Gramps, Mom, Dad might be a little ornery today because that's just their mood and they can't control it as well.
Well, and that's why organizations like the Alzheimer's Society that you're talking about, there's also the Alzheimer's Family Center of Cape Cod, which has come up over the bridge. And
over the bridge.
They are doing a program one day a week at the Center for Active Living in Plymouth currently. And then I believe it's on Tuesdays. And then after the first of the year, they'll be having a program on Fridays at the Duxbury Senior Center. All of their programs are free. They have family support groups. They have different programs so that your loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia can stay, and the caregiver, the loved one, can go and have 3 hours to do something for themselves, because we know caregiver burnout and taking care of yourself is so difficult. Yeah. So that's one of the things that's really important, is to look at all of these different agencies and groups to see how we can help a family, and to think about who will care for me. So many of us may not have family or loved ones living close by. So the Center for Active Living, the senior centers are one of the first places we can go. But you don't have to wait till you're 60 or 70, right? When you get that AARP magazine, 50, right? That's when,
I got that in there recently.
we need to start thinking about these things. And so that's one of the things that I love most about my job, is helping people to think about things before. My daughter's a social worker, and she works with young children. And I remember her telling me about in a class how someone was talking about, seeing this river, and all these children are in the river, and all the social workers trying to help them get out. And finally, one person stood up and said, okay, some of us have to stay here, but some of us have to go up the river. Who the hell is throwing them in? And so as an educator, that's where I like to go. I like to go upriver. And I'm sure, like yourself, get people to start thinking about these things now. because it takes a lot of effort to explore the legal, to explore, the financial. Things are costing so much for caregiving. Right now in our area, it's about $45 an hour if you're paying for that service.
If you're lucky.
And there's minimums of 6 to 8 hours, and maybe 2 days a week is the minimum, and you pay a month up front. And then you've got folks like Old Colony Elder Services, which were helping my family. Having staff has been greatly challenging. So we need to come together. We need to come together, and again, centers for active living, senior centers are a great place to start, as are your libraries, as are many other places in the town. But hopefully coming together and thinking about these things are going to help. Yeah. Just a couple of things that are coming up in the community. Let's see, I think we'll be... maybe the next day will be on Monday, November 20th, at the Duxbury Senior Center. We'll be doing a film screening called Keys, Bags, Names, and Words around caring for loved ones having dementia. And Dr. Molly Perdue, who is the executive director of the Alzheimer's Family Center of Cape Cod, will be there, and I'll be helping to facilitate that discussion. But we'll be showing the movie. It's from 1:30 to 4:30. We'll have brain-healthy snacks. And November is...
No Oreos, huh?
No Oreos. November is National Family Caregiver Month. So really important. AARP has a number of programs that folks can check out. And then one of the things we're doing is a Let's Talk About It book discussion at the Duxbury Senior Center. And our January book will be Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. Just a terrific book that, again, points us home that we will all die. And so what are some of those choices? And yes, we can keep you maybe alive with many different medical interventions, but is that what you want, right?
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll share is that I'm also an end-of-life doula. And so that is a program where folks can think about and plan for what dying might be. And based on medical things, based on some of your personal wishes, spiritual wishes. An end-of-life doula is a non-medical person that comes and gives emotional support, some physical support, taking care of the person's spirit, mind, and body.
Right.
And working, as you said, with someone to say, okay, who do you want to be around you? Who do we need to gather for you? What do you want to smell? What do you want to hear? What type of music? What type of candlelight? And my mom recently passed. She passed away 9 months ago. And thank goodness she told me what she wanted. And so we were able, it was a sudden illness, a flu and pneumonia. But we were able to honor her wishes, and she was very clear. She did not want a wake. She did not want a traditional funeral. And so we were able to do those things that she wanted, and it was a wonderful gift to my two brothers and I and our family to know what she wanted, but also to be able to come and celebrate in the way she wanted at her celebration in life, celebration of life. And, it was almost 2 months after she passed. So you don't have to do things the traditional way.
No.
And so...
So I hate to cut you off, but we are coming to the end of our half hour.
Okay.
How do people get in touch with you in case they want to learn more about what you do?
So my practice is called Aging with Grit, Grace, and Dignity. And so if you go to Cheryl at agingwithgraceanddignity.com. You can connect me to me directly. I have a website as well as my cell phone and information, and things are there.
And you'll be at a couple of events in the near future in Duxbury and Plymouth.
Yes, we will. I will be, and I'm certainly willing to do more programs or to meet with you personally as well.
Yep, fantastic. Well, I know this has been a good session for me. Hopefully people have gotten some wonderful opportunities to be thankful this week as we get into Thanksgiving, and hug your loved ones and talk to them about what they actually want more than just what they want for dinner or what they want to watch on TV. So in any case, it's Sunday, which means the Car Guy is coming up next. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
But it must have been a wrong time. said the right thing, but her mother used the wrong line. I've been on the right trail, but I must use the wrong car. Hit him in a bad place, and I wonder what's good for. I've been in the right place, but her mother's been the wrong time. My head is in a bad place, but I'm having such a good time. I've been running, trying to keep tongue up in my mind. Just got to give myself a good talking to this time. Just need a little brain salad surgery. I got to cure my insecurity.